on this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.
And I think Arizona State wide receiver Jordan Tyson is a really good option, right? It's been since the days of Michael Thomas, Marcus Colston, since we've had a big body wide receiver presence to match Chris Olave, right? I think that's going to be very important.
There's a lot of intriguing guys in that wide receiver group.
If you can get a value wide receiver in the second, third, fourth round, you don't have to do that in the first round, and you can address either the playmaking side or get an edge rusher, which everybody covets.
He's going to be on that float, and he's going to be grand marshalling. Meanwhile, last year's quarterback missing entirely during that time. What a difference a year makes.
That's a good comparison.
And congratulations to Tyler Shuck for doing this right. That's 100%.
All right,
I'm gonna go. And welcome in to another episode of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, a pre-Senior Bowl edition. We're grateful to have you with us here on the show, which is a collaboration between the Locked On Podcast Network and WWL TV. I am Ross Jackson. This is the magnificent Doug Mouton. Thank you very much for being here with us today.
Yeah, and look, we are kicking into the offseason for the Saints right now. So much optimism, so much to look forward to.
Yeah.
The first thing is the Senior Bowl, obviously the Combine after that, and then the intrigue just keeps building and building. But the Senior Bowl is first, and the Saints found a bunch of guys at the Senior Bowl last year. What is the first position group or thing you're looking for when you get to Mobile?
Well, I'm going to tell you, it's actually what I'm not looking for this year. Once the quarterbacks hit the field, Ross is doing something else. This is a wonderful time for New Orleans. They don't have to worry about the quarterback. They have their guy in Tyler Shuck. They can move forward. So now they can focus on some of those other positions, which really is kind of all those other positions, right? You want to look at everything. What can you put around the quarterback?
And when I looked at the rosters, the one thing that struck me, there were a ton of wide receivers.
A lot.
And the top couple of guys are not there. So it is a lot of wide receivers that will be available and will be going in rounds 2, 3, 4, 5. There's a lot of intriguing guys in that wide receiver group.
Absolutely. Guys that could potentially creep up into the bottom half of the first round, too. Indiana's Elijah Surratt, bigger bodied, more physical type of wide receiver. I love his play style and his demeanor. The best thing, the thing that translates across all wide receivers from college to the NFL is dudes that play with an attitude. And that's what Elijah Surratt does. Guys like Casey Concepcion as well, the yards after catch guy from Texas A&M. There's going to be some really fun players at that position to watch.
And this sounds stupid, but Kurt Cignetti and what he did at Indiana has me sort of thinking differently about these guys. And I'm thinking, you know what? I want to see guys who have gotten it done. Guys who have had production and had success. Obviously, you got to have the physical tools to play at the next level in the NFL as elite athletes. For sure. But I want guys who have put numbers up. You mentioned Surratt. He's one of those guys that just put ridiculous numbers of touchdowns up, and that means something.
15 receiving touchdowns, led the FBS D1 in that metric. And here's the other thing about Kirk Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers. I want any player at any position that's been a part of that guy's culture if I'm an NFL GM.
Yeah, wow, that's well said, and I agree with that 100%. All right, let's show you what's on the menu on this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show. I find this part of the football season super intriguing, especially the next month or so. This is when guys go up or down in big ways in ratings. All right, the large plates, things we're talking about, yes, giant Senior Bowl logo. I love that. It's usually a photo there. Talking about the Senior Bowl and Mickey Loomis, and he's bringing that podium with him.
That is true.
To Mobile. And he's going to watch the Senior Bowl practice behind the podium with a tie on. No, Mickey Loomis has a lot to learn at the Senior Bowl. Then the small plates.
Yeah, so we're going to be taking a look at not these guys when it comes to the Senior Bowl. These are some of the big name guys. Jeremiah Love, Notre Dame running back, as well as Jordan Tyson, who we believe will be the first wide receiver out of Arizona State. He'll be probably the first wide receiver off the board. They won't be there, so we're looking at the guys that are behind them trying to climb up the ladder a bit.
But still.
A lot to look at, a lot that you're going to see here. Kellen Moore obviously is going to be looking at all these guys, and he's got some secret eyes on everybody because Joel Thomas, his associate head coach, is going to be the head coach of one of the teams in Mobile.
Yeah, I'm so glad for Joel Thomas to get a chance to do that. Joel Thomas is a guy the Saints have been very high on for a while, and good to see him get that shot. And 100%. That can be sort of a stepping stone for guys. Certainly a learning experience, and certainly you get inside info. All right, our dinner guest tonight, Keith Sanchez, who has done a spectacular job We had him on last year around the time or right after the draft.
Yeah.
Super good insights, and he's a New Orleanian.
Yep.
So he's cool.
And Saints fan, and he's cool. That's true,
he's
too.
cool.
But Saints fan, he knows what it is that they're looking for, too.
Yeah, I love having Keith back. We're going to have him on a couple of times in the next few months. And the comic stylings of Ricardo LeCompte, where you can't go wrong when you bring Ricardo into a party. And you're making the last call.
Yeah, so I'm going a little old school in the drink, but with a fresh twist. Quite literally, we're going to do a cucumber gimlet. And gimlet is a classic drink. We're going to mess with it, though.
Are we
gonna
putting all that stuff in it?
Absolutely not. We ain't got time for that.
We ain't got time for that.
I want my drink. I'm not trying to get dinner. I want my drink. I want no salad.
The pictures we find always have all the accoutrement, which we don't. I hate to say,
I'm not trying
just
to drink my salad today.
5 LSU Tigers will be in Mobile, which I find super interesting. Led by that guy, Car Cougar Aaron Anderson, the wide receiver.
Yep.
Again, he is one of 5, and this group is super interesting. That's Jack Pyburn in the upper left. Underneath him, that's A.J. Halsey, who's a player that I think is going to be great in the NFL. Of course, in the top right, that is Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback who has some rehabilitation of image to do, which is super interesting. Then Barrion Brown, another another of those many wide receivers, and there's like more than a dozen of them that I think are super interesting.
Big time, and especially him, elite returner.
Elite
in
returner.
The return game. So
and Aaron Anderson's got elite speed.
Yep.
You know who was there last year?
Oh, I know who that is. That's Tyler Shuck.
Who else was there?
Yeah, so you saw 5 different players drafted from New Orleans out of the Senior Bowl. Tyler Shuck was one of them. First-round pick Kelvin Banks Jr. was as well. And then Jonas Sanker, the safety, Devin Neal, the running back, as well as Maliki Matavao, the tight end, who they drafted in the 7th round. And just fun fact, too, Vernon Broughton was invited, accepted, but did not participate. Danny Stutzman was invited and declined. So all of these guys effectively had some touch to this All-Star.
Yeah, the Saints are going to find a lot of guys. Shuck used the game and then the combine to propel himself into the 2nd round of the draft, and then he is now one of the 5 finalists for the NFL's Offensive Rookie of the Year. These are the 5 finalists. The guy in the middle, I'll put Ted McMillan in the middle because he is likely to win, and you know what? He earned it, whether Saints fans want to admit that or not. Put up great numbers, led him into the playoffs, but Tyler Shuck's season was amazing. And what is now interesting, Ross, we're going to say this for the first time. Tyler Shuck's, people know this part. Tyler Shuck's the Grand Marshal of the crew of Pygmalion, which runs the Uptown route the first Saturday of Carnival, which is the February 7th. And guess what's going to happen?
I wonder what's going to happen.
WWL is going to broadcast the crew of Pygmalion, and the 2 hosts at the convention center for that broadcast, we haven't announced this anywhere, are going to be Ross Jackson and Douglas Mouton.
It's us!
Yes.
Are you surprised? I am. I'm super excited. I cannot wait to do this.
And look, we agreed to do it before we knew Tyler Shuck was riding.
Very true.
Tyler Shuck has no idea what he's about to be in for.
No, not at all. In the best way possible. Like,
in the best way possible.
He has done such a phenomenal job of putting himself out there, connecting with the city. This is going to be a whole new level once he sees what he's going to see enjoying Mardi Gras for the first time.
All right, I've said this before. Archie Manning was the quarterback of the Saints for my entire childhood. And Archie Manning rode when I was about 12 years old as the king of the crew of gladiators, which was a parade at the time in Chalmette. And Archie Manning threw little footballs, and me and my friend Jimmy Smith chased, and Jimmy's name was Jimmy Smith. We never called him Jimmy.
No, Jimmy Smith. Yeah.
We chased Archie Manning's float for around 6 blocks because we had to catch a ball from Archie Manning in the air. Jimmy caught one on a bounce and threw it away.
Get rid of that. Get rid of that.
It took us about 6 blocks. We both caught a ball from Archie Manning. And I tell that story because Tyler Shuck, I don't know if he realizes how many 12-year-old New Orleanians are going to be chasing his float, hoping to catch. Of course, parents then would let us chase a float for 6 blocks at 12. Parents now are smarter. My parents didn't care. They just let us run free.
I didn't even think about that.
Parents now don't let their kids do that. But he's going to have thousands of 12-year-old New Orleanians chasing his float in the best possible way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I find that just amazing.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And I think that's going to be one of those moments where the city is going to fall even more with love with him, and he's going to fall even more in love with the city when he sees that.
Yeah, it's going to be special, and I'm so glad you and I get to be part of that.
Yeah, me too. That's going to be so much fun. That's a dream come true for me, by the way. I've always wanted to do parade coverage.
It's a parade coverage in New Orleans.
I mean, what is more New Orleans than that?
That's all it takes. Right. That's the end. All right, time to bring in the guest. And we're back with the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, and our guests are here. That, of course, Ricardo LeCompte from WWL-TV. This Keith Sanchez, who has joined us before from the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast, does a great job. Thank you both for being here.
Yeah,
No, thank you
for
having us.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. First time
I'm glad you're back, Keith.
There you go, right there. I love it. All right, Keith, let's start with you as you're coming back to us here. Let's start with round one. We're going to get to Senior Bowl stuff here in a little bit, but let's start where everybody's looking, which is round one of the 2026 NFL draft. You're the general manager. We're not talking about what you think Mickey Loomis would do. You know this team, you know their needs, you know this draft class extremely well. Who are a couple of guys that you feel like would be realistic, strong fits for New Orleans at 8 overall?
Let's go two different positions, right? I'm going to start with wide receiver first, right?
Okay.
And I think Arizona State wide receiver Jordan Tyson is a really good option, right? It's been since the days of Michael Thomas, Marcus Colston, since we've had a big body wide receiver presence to match Chris Olave, right? I think that's going to be very important. And then another position I'm going to go with is edge rusher. I look at Ruben Bain. We watched him in the national championship. It was not his fault that they lost, right?
No.
And then there's one other edge rusher, Texas A&M edge rusher, Cassius Howell. I like this young man. He plays with a violent, physical temperament, something that the New Orleans Saints need, and they've been swinging at it, right? We've took a couple swings the past 10 years and just kind of missed, but I think Cassius Howell could get the job done.
Yeah, I like that. And edge rusher is one of those premium positions. And Sean Payton used to talk about this. You're not going to get an edge rusher unless you have all the money in the world to spend, which the Saints do not and will not. You're not going to get an edge rusher in free agency. You really have to grow your own. And so Sean Payton said it that way. And that, although it might not seem like an obvious need, you can never go wrong if you can get an elite pass rusher. I think the Saints do need another one. I think that's a legitimate, under the radar need that could come through.
Right, and you're looking at that 3-4 defense, right? We have a lot of 4-3 prototypical defensive ends on this defense currently. You kind of want a 3-4 guy, that athletic, twitchy edge guy that can get after the quarterback. That's why I like the Texas Tech kid, the Bailey kid as well, who's
David Bailey,
David Bailey was so productive at Texas Tech in that one season. Maybe they look that way, and it almost feels like when you were saying the Mickey Loomis thing, maybe he feels like, man, we missed on defensive ends these past drafts. Like, this is the time I redeem myself and find that defensive end. And he could go defensive end first round, which, we're looking at wide receivers, we're looking at Jeremiah Love, but yes, getting a DN could be where the Saints, target in the first round.
That could be massive, right? We don't know if Cam Jordan's going to be back at the time that we're discussing this. We don't know what kind of consistency you're going to get from Carl Granderson, who's had very strong beginnings of seasons, really strong ends of seasons, but has kind of had those dips in the middle. That's been something he has talked about himself. And so finding another one of those edge rusher presences could make a ton of sense. We like to call David Bailey, by the way, the swagless wonder, because he wears nothing of design at all. But his play, 14.5 sacks, led the nation, tied with Nadame Tucker out of Western Kentucky, in case you're wondering. It would be another kind of elite presence, potentially.
Yeah, and I was just going to say that Cameron Jordan is doing us a favor at this point, right? Because we thought he was going to retire 5 years ago. And I think he's coming back until Mickey Loomis figures out who's the successor to his position. So let's go ahead and help him out and be like, look, you can finally hang the cleats up now.
There you go. We got somebody.
Let me ask you a similar thing, okay? So if the Saints would do that, that's not one of the obvious needs. Is there a position group that you think is deep enough? For now, the Saints have a 3, 2 4s, and 2 5s,
2 4s,
right?
2 5s, yep.
So that's a lot of middle round draft picks. Is there a position that you're looking at as a draft class that has so much abundance that the Saints might be able to get a better player than they should in rounds 3, 4, 5? Where's the fat of this draft? And I'll say fat in the best possible way.
I should say real quick, one of those 4th round picks still has to convey it would be compensatory based on the Paulson and Debo one. So that one's still up in the air, but everyone's very confident that they're going to get that 4th round pick. So
okay, fair. What position or positions do you think the Saints can get a better player than they should at that price?
Yeah, let's talk about the position that's fat, and all that, right? And that's the wide receiver position. Listen, every time I cut on the film, I write 3rd round, 2nd round, 1st round. Like every single time I cut on the film for a wide receiver, I compared it to last year's running back class, right? Where even the Saints was able to draft a guy like Devin Neal in the 7th round, who people were much higher on. I think if you look at a Denzel Boston out of University of Washington, you look at Chris Bell, who tore his ACL but was a 1st round draft pick. There's Texas Tech wide receiver Caleb Douglas and Reggie Virgil, both both 6-foot-plus guys that can move and are athletic. The third round, fourth round, you can find starters. I think this is the draft where you rebuild your wide receiver room.
I'm so glad you brought up Chris Bell, Louisville wide receiver. Spent a year with Tyler Shuck in Louisville. Could be cool to kind of reunite the two of them. I don't know if he's going to be ready to begin the season. We're not sure. Micah Parsons tore his ACL after the Chris Bell injury, and he says he might be ready for week 1. But they all say that, so we'll see exactly what happens. But I do feel like if you go with the Chris Bell, you don't have him early on in the season, that you're still good enough at the wide receiver position to bridge the gap, and especially if you add somebody else in free agency too.
Yeah, and if you go with that logic, it would make sense if you have a deep wide receiver class, like in that first pick, you can afford to go after the playmaker that you need in the Jeremiah Love,
or an edge rusher,
or the edge rusher and defensive end, where you don't have to. You know, I like Tyson, but it's almost like if you can get a value wide receiver in the second, third, fourth round, you don't have to do that in the first round, and you can address either the playmaking side or get an edge rusher, which everybody covets.
Yeah. I find the Senior Bowl super interesting to watch and how it's evolved. Look, there was a time in the 90s when we go to the Senior Bowl and you'd be on the field. I mean, you'd be from here to here, from the O-line, D-line, one-on-ones, and it was amazing to watch. When you sit in the stands now and watch it, what are the things this year that you're saying, I can't wait to watch this or this? Like, what are the one or two things you've got like little asterisks on? I am hyper focusing on what?
It's always the one-on-ones, right? And whether that's the O-line, D-line, or that's the wide receivers going against the defensive backs. I'll go to one player that we talked about off camera, Texas Tech edge rusher / linebacker, Romello Height.
Oh, yeah.
This guy is first step explosive, right? He's right around 235, 240 pounds, and he doesn't have the same exact numbers as David Bailey because he played off backer more, but I think he touched the double-digit number. I think this guy's going to catch a lot of offensive tackles off guard. So that's definitely one-on-one matchup that I'm looking forward to.
I love that.
That's a unique fit in Brandon Staley's defense too, because you're going to want that other pass rusher to be able to drop back into coverage. And so if he can show up as a pass rusher and this is the beautiful thing about the Senior Bowl, all these All-Star games, is you get to show, hey, these are things that my system didn't ask me to do, but let me show you that I can do it.
100%. Look, I remember being at the Senior Bowl one year, and on like day 3, they bring in this wide receiver. They didn't have pants for him. He's still wearing his Memphis pants. It's Isaac Bruce. So it's like they're bringing in a guy the third day, and he's Hall of Fame quality at the Senior Bowl. And so you just wind up remembering guys. Senior Bowl is an amazing experience. What do you go there this time? Like, I'm watching this.
I think a big part of it for me is I'll peel the curtain back a little bit. Some of it isn't really about the practices and everything too. Some of it is hey, can I find this coach or this staff member somewhere, and you have all these like conversations and everything. You start to pick up the whispers of teams doing their draft prep. So a lot of that from the reporter side is a big part of what I'm focused on. But another big piece to it for this one for me is actually also going to be the running back group.
Yeah.
I'm very interested to see, and we've been on the running back thing for it feels like years.
Yeah, because
now.
the Saints need one. For the last few seasons, they've needed to do that, and they haven't addressed it as much. Like they haven't focused on that because they're like, well, Alvin Kamara can keep running until he's 35. right? That's Derrick Henry having the back. No, it's not. You need a running back, and we've been saying that for a while.
Yeah. And you got two guys from Penn State, Nicholas Singleton as well as Katron Allen. I like both those guys. We just learned that Jalen Black, who had a phenomenal national championship game for Indiana, just a brutal, violent.
And it's so much fun to watch.
I'm bigger and better than you type of runner. Like I love those types of attitudes, and he's got that. And so I think that's going to be another one of those positions I'll be looking at.
Yeah, that's awesome. And look.
Oh, and you know what? I also want to be able to see, we're going to be across the stands from where the coaches are going to be. Yeah. I'm going to be watching through my binoculars Kellen Moore to see when his binoculars go up.
Oh, I like that.
And then you kind of get to see it.
And wherever that Saints contingent is, look at them. So when they're paying attention to whatever they're like looking at, it's like, that's the one.
They sure studied the Senior Bowl last year.
Right. Yeah.
And look, people love trashing Mickey Loomis in New Orleans, right? And it's a sort of a New Orleans thing. Yeah. But you look at what he did in the draft last year, and that draft class is pretty good, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing with Mickey, right? When he hits, right?
Yeah,
it's a home run, right? Yeah. He's going 400 feet, right?
So, that's good, yeah.
And I like it, right? You talk about Kelvin Banks, and then obviously it's the crown jewel, right? Having the confidence in Tyler Shuck, and it's starting to show that, you know what, this young man from Louisville, you took a swing on him in the second round. This guy probably is a franchise quarterback, and let's see if he can outpace a Jackson Dart or a Cam Ward and be the best quarterback in that draft class.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And how about him? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, I wonder if there was a philosophy change, with Kellen Moore
I
and
do
with
too.
these coaches.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned the Senior Bowl numbers, right? These are older guys. These are guys experienced. We talked about Devin Neal, who was at Kansas and was a team captain. Like a lot of older guys, a lot of guys who have been proven. Not not so much like, oh man, this is this guy who's got all these stats, looks great. Yep. But where's that leadership? Where's that? Like, it feels like, and we'll look at this at the Senior Bowl. Like, how many more Senior Bowl guys do they take? How many more of these guys that are experienced, the guys that are more mature, they go after those? And it seems like that was what this previous Saints class was. I feel like this is what they're going to be looking for is finding those kind of guys, like grown adults, to have on this team.
If you're following along at home and you're doing your own draft study at home, Senior Bowl, team captain, 50-plus games played. Yeah. Those are the guys that they drafted.
Kind of guys.
And look, we talked about a Curt Cignetti approach, getting productive guys who have done it. It did seem like the Saints put more of an emphasis on that and less on the Peyton Turner.
Right.
This guy's got amazing upside.
Marcus Davenport.
Marcus Davenport, sure. Go back to Ronald Powell is one of my favorite of all time.
Yeah.
These phenomenal athletes who have never really done it on the field. Yeah. There was more of an emphasis on just real life production, which I call a Curt Cignetti thing, because it is, and he just won a national championship with that mindset. Yeah. But you saw that in the Saints draft class last year, didn't you?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's you asked me like a key thing about the Senior Bowl, right? The Senior Bowl is the one draft event where it's simply football, right? If you want to find a football player, watch them play football, right? Yeah. The combine is a great metric and is a great measuring tool, but that doesn't always translate to football. I always say this, right? That great football players are great football players. Every great athlete isn't a great football player, and people, time to time, they will miss when they draft great athletes, expecting that they'll be great football players.
And you say you sound like Curt Cignetti. That's right. That's exactly what he said. All right, we got about a minute for this, but our ball water advisory for this episode is: what do the Saints not look at? What are the Saints not studying? Keith, you're the special guest. What's first?
I'm going to go off of what this draft class is. I'm nervous about the cornerback class. That's the one. I'm nervous because it hasn't been a lot of depth like it's been in years past. I'm nervous about the cornerback class.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
They don't need a quarterback?
Yeah, big time.
Is that the obvious?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, because they hit luckily with Tyler Shuck last year, and they don't need to find one, which is a good thing because they need a lot of other holes on this roster they've got to fill, and they can concentrate on that.
Yeah, I agree with that. And look, I also believe they hit on Spencer Rattler as a fifth-round draft pick. If he can be your backup, that is a win, and not just a little win. That's a major win. If you can get a backup that you like, that you feel could come in and win a game or two for you. That, to me, that's a great draft pick for a fifth-round pick. So, I agree with you. To me, the one position that I'm not looking at is quarterback.
Yeah.
Did we leave you nothing?
No. I actually have two, believe it or not.
Okay. There you go.
So with the return of Julian Blackmon, I don't think they have to put a super big emphasis on safety. If they're up there at 8 and all of a sudden Ohio State safety Caleb Downs is there and he's the best player available, you can have a little bit of lanyard there where you can go and grab that guy, but you don't have that as a need. And then you have two bookend tackles. Left tackle Kelvin Banks Jr.,
that's a good point.
who made the PFWA All-Rookie team here recently, and right tackle Taliesin Fuanga is going into his third year. Those guys are set. You don't have to rush for tackle now.
No, right. But in theory, if there was a guy in the 5th or 6th or 7th, that could be depth.
Yeah, you just don't have to rush for it.
You don't have to rush for it. Oh, that's good. All right, you know what time it is, Ross?
Oh, last call!
It is now time for last call here on the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show, our favorite part of the show. Ross Jackson, you're in charge. What are you making us?
Yeah, so look, here we go. We're going to go with a gimlet today, which is a classic drink. Usually a gin, lime juice, fresh squeeze for Ricardo.
That's all I care about.
And simple syrup, but we're switching it up. We're going cucumber. We're going with the freshness here. We're going with the St. Rock cucumber vodka. And then we have like a little float of sparkling water we're going to throw on top of that too. 2 ounces of this, 1 ounce of lime juice, half an ounce of simple syrup, nice and easy.
It sounds awesome.
Super
all right,
simple.
now let's get started while Ross is mixing drinks. Keith, why don't you go first with your last call?
Last call, I'm going to go with the New Orleans Saints and being aggressive in the draft, right? Go get Tyler Shuck some playmakers. We didn't Shuck tonight, right? And what I mean by this, we watched the Chicago Bears, right? They got aggressive, right? They went and got Luther Burden, they went and got Colston Loveland. They got 7th-round pick Kyle Monunga, and they went to the playoffs. Can we get a playoff?
Three guys.
Three guys.
Three playmakers in one draft. You talk about why the Bears got to where they're 3 playmakers in one draft. With saying we'd be happy with 1. But could you imagine?
3. Yep.
Could you imagine? How's that coming?
Great.
Okay, I'm going to go next.
It smells amazing.
Well, the cucumber vodka is very
it's
interesting,
working.
and I love the St. Rock products. I'm super curious to try that. All right, look, mine is college football national championship was this week. The Indiana Hoosiers won the national championship. I don't think people fully realize how stunning this was what Kirk Cignetti pulled off. He went after a different kind of player, a lot of older players, and age mattered. Older, experienced, and production. Not just can he do it physically, has he done it? He's found guys that did it. He has, I think, everybody in college football rethinking how they evaluate. And I just, look, I'm a little bit older than you guys. I love the idea of the old dude reinventing himself and being smarter than everyone else in college football because every transfer he got could have gone anywhere else. They had money, but they didn't have a ton of money. He was smarter, got ahead of everybody, and won. And I think it's amazing.
Yeah, and Kirk Cignetti took over the losingest college football program and got them to a national championship in 2 years there. So now I think the pressure is on, as I'm doing my last call here, I think the pressure is on for a lot of programs where, A, you got to evaluate the right talent, and 2, not everyone can have a Kirk Cignetti. Like, it's just like, that's the other factor in this. It was Kirk Cignetti that was able to do this. LSU's hoping that Lane Kiffin is that Kirk Cignetti for them, and so far in this transfer portal season, 41 guys? Insane.
Wow,
They
insane.
They do have the number 1 quarterback in Sam Levitt out of the portal. They just recently got the number 1 defensive end in Princeville Uman Mielen. Nailed that name. Thank you. But they've got now all the talent. Can Lane Kiffin now put it all together? He's got now the spring, the summer, and now the fall to get this team to at least the playoff, and then we'll see.
That's a lot of work to be done.
That's a lot. It is.
41 new guys. All right, look, I am toasting to Kirk Cignetti and the Indiana Hoosiers. I know we're in Louisiana, but I just think it was so impressive what they pulled off. All right, let's taste these babies.
It's also for the older guys right there.
Boy, you get the cucumber.
Oh, yeah, you do. Man.
You get the cucumber right on the front.
That's impressive
right in the front,
for not having any cucumber juice.
Right.
Like we didn't juice a cucumber for this or anything. It's just a cucumber flavored vodka. And I
feels
think
like a cucumber
is
like floating in there, and I'm tasting that. I
dig it.
That's really
good.
That's really good.
This is like a summer. This is a good.
I'm getting the cucumber and I'm getting the Topo Chico on top. You know, you get the little spark. Oh, that's good stuff.
Little buzz going.
He likes it.
I love it. Yeah, if I got Keith happy, we're good.
I'm picturing myself by a pool drinking this right now because
100%.
of this cold.
No.
That's what I'm doing right now. I'm going to fantasize
like a
right now.
day
Excuse me.
drink.
I'm
It
fantasizing.
It does feel like a day
This
drink.
is a good day drink. That's 100%. All right, here, I'm gonna go with my last call real quick as we wrap up here. For me, the thing that I want to highlight is, remember what we were talking about at this time last year when it came to the New Orleans Saints quarterback situation? It was, where the heck is Derek Carr? It's carnival season, Super Bowl was in town, Derek Carr was MIA, and everyone was wondering why. He was over out in Las Vegas giving, the shoulder was hurting, right, of course. And then he was out in Las Vegas, he was giving sermons, he was doing all this other stuff, everything. What a difference a year makes. Right now, you've got Tyler Shuck doing a very, what I will call, calculated in the right way media tour, because he's not going and talking to national audiences. He's just doing some of that, but he's talking to his fan base. He's going on Teron Armstead's podcast. He's going on Tyrann Mathieu' podcast. He is talking to his audience, to his fan base, and he's making sure that everybody knows, hey, this is the work that I'm doing. This is what we're doing. This is why you should be excited. And then, come carnival season, as we talked about earlier on, February 7th, Pygmalion, Doug and I will be hosting.
Super excited.
He's going to be on that float, and he's going to be grand marshaling. Meanwhile, last year's quarterback missing entirely during that time. What a difference a year makes.
That's a good comparison.
And congratulations to Tyler Shuck for doing this right.
Doing it right. And look, people criticize the age. The age, in retrospect, was a humongous advantage because he's done everything right from when he walked in the
It was the age and the one viral throw at the combine. That's what people think. Are you sure you want to go with Tyler Shuck?
Right. But the age helped. Ladies and gentlemen, Keith, you're awesome, by the way. We're going to do this. We're going to do this a few more times before the draft. Thank you for watching this edition of the Ultimate New Orleans Sports Show.